Alright, we're back real quick. Obviously I didn't do this, I just wanted to cut this up. But never mind. Shenanigans. Alright. So look, man. obviously y'all need to get a motorcycle and you all want to ride, but you need to understand that there are, well, this'll be like motorcycle 101. I don't want to get into like the mechanical things because we can get into that a little bit later on. I just, if you get an opportunity to ride and you want to ride, I want you to keep a few things in the back of your mind. Oh, that was weak. So, regardless of what motorcycle you ride, it's a two-wheeled machine. You sit on handlebars, foot pegs. It should have a shifter and a brake and all this. But I need to impress upon you that the portion of the bike that contacts the road is the tire. So it's very important that you learn to develop a feel for what the tire is doing, and you need to develop a feel for what the tire is doing vis-a-vis the suspension system. So it's very important that you get a bike with a suspension system that's competent enough to really translate that to you in a very pure and direct way. Which is why, again, it helps to spend a little bit of money and not really shortcut something, especially if you're unsure of what you're doing and what you're buying. It's the cheapest insurance you can do is to just buy something that is well engineered from the get-go. But nevertheless, I just wanted to briefly talk about riding, because if you've watched a couple of the like motovloggy bullshit videos that I put up, understand that if you look at any of that and you think I'm riding a little bit quickly, first of all, I'm not riding quickly. I'm riding in a pretty reserved fashion. I know it's hard to believe, but it is actually very true. Because I know the margin of error that I can give myself, and I can visually see where my stopping points are. And believe it or not, with my peripheral vision, I take into consideration all the driveways and the byways and the side streets and stuff. You're just hyper vigilant when you ride, and you train yourself to develop this level of awareness that is, it's almost unheard of, because I feel like I talk to people on a day-to-day basis and like sort of interact with people on a day-to-day basis, and they don't have that same sort of acuity and level of awareness that is accounting for your surroundings. Like when you're on a motorcycle, it really does train you to be more aware and more visually perceptive and audibly perceptive, and like just. You can smell obviously you use all of your senses and then some, and including your intuition and your instincts when you're riding a bike. But I really want to caution you as you develop your riding skills. It is dangerous, and I know not everybody can afford a current bike with traction control and ABS. I do believe that if you were really, really apt to do so, you probably actually could. But you would have to, probably finance the bike, which is whatever. But irregardless, that's not the point. I want you to get it into your head when you can push the bike and when you can't push the bike. Now, if you don't know where you're going and you're unfamiliar, I wouldn't recommend pushing the bike. It seems like a really intuitive thing to do, to not push yourself when you're unfamiliar with your surroundings. You really need to get familiarized with the roads where you're riding before you can really know where your push points are, because you need to know where you can brake later, turn harder, accelerate faster. You need to know where corners are going to tighten up and open up, and all these things you just don't know. You can't just look at a map and memorize these things. Every road is crowned a little bit, and they do this for water runoff, so that the water runoff runs to the outside of the road. So if you shift to the inside of the road and there's a crown on the road, you need to understand that when you shift back to the outside of the road, it's going to be off camber a little bit. There's things like that. There's elevation changes. Older roads get ruts in them and stuff. There's cracks in the roads. There's potholes. There's so many things that can sneak up on you if you're not really paying attention. And again, because I grew up riding dirt bikes, I found that when you ride off-road, you account for all these things like it's your job, because there's nothing else to do. You ride off-road and you're just subjected to the environment and the landscape and the topography of everything. And you have to be able to read and decipher trails, and again, it's different because you're dealing with different spatial distances and stuff a lot of the time, and different general speeds. But by rights, riding off-road is far more technical. And so once you get onto the road, I mean, it's quite easy to ride on the road in a relatively normal fashion. If you talk about outright like racing tactics, like true like TT style racing, it's a totally different story at that point. Like any form of racing, but irregardless, I really want you to to get it into your head that you want to like the first thing I think you should develop when you're learning to ride is powering out of the corner, because that's the safest and easiest way to learn. But it's difficult if you don't have traction control to be on your ass about that stuff. But nevertheless, if you're gonna come in, let's say you're going in a straight line and there's a corner and you're gonna come into the corner. Obviously, you want to make sure that you slow down enough to maintain traction through the corner. That goes without saying. And I think you should always leave yourself more margin of error than you think, because you can always come back and do that corner again and make up for a bit of speed and brake a little bit later. But again, as you're doing this, I mean, you need to read and interpret the road through the tires and the suspension and the chassis and everything. So it's a lot to do with getting everything else just shut out of your head, blocked out, and just completely clear-headed and focused on what you're doing. I know, again, if you've watched any of the motovlogging, or I say motovlog, I don't know, any of the motorcycle riding videos, you know that it doesn't look like I'm paying attention. And it probably doesn't look like I'm paying attention because I'm probably doing 50-50. I'm probably 50% paying attention as much as I can for how fast I'm riding. And then my mind just starts to wander because I'm not developing enough mental energy into what I'm doing as much as I would like to. Because I would always like to ride faster and be able to really engage with the bike and do what the bike is meant to do. But that's not really feasible in most cases, and I have to know and accept that. And it's hard, and it sucks. I mean, I wish I could ride like the bike was really built to ride all the time, but there's rare occasions where you can really do that. But it's still fun to ride, and it's still a blast, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. It's amazing. But, I guess the real point I wanted to make was that, again, coming into a corner, if you leave yourself a lot of margin of error, go through the corner, and then, where you first want to start to pick up speed and learn riding control and stuff is exiting the corner. And the reason for that is that, if the bike tends to slip when you're coming out of a corner, it's going to have more of a tendency to oversteer rather than understeer. And oversteer is a little bit easier to deal with. Because when you understeer, it may be kind of how you would think it would be. You're riding, and it doesn't steer as much as you would like it to. So you end up just kind of going straight, and that's where you go off the road. So as you're coming up out of the corner, if it tends to oversteer, you have more of a tendency to sort of be in the line with the road as you're crashing, which actually makes it safer. I guess. I know these are all really relative and rough terms, but... Well, again, I guess, I don't know, it's really difficult for me to tell you all to get a motorcycle and learn to do this. I guess because I have a conscience about this. I think, I really do think riding off-road is the way to go, and the first place you should do this. And unfortunately, it's harder and harder to ride nowadays. Everybody seems to just get butthurt about stuff. And it's really annoying. I mean, I really love riding dirt bikes, but it got to be annoying because to get a nice dirt bike, like a quick, fun bike to ride, unfortunately, bikes get loud. And when they get loud, people complain, they don't want to hear it, they just yada 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 yada. And when they get loud and they don't want to hear it, they give you pushback, and it just, you end up feeling guilty trying to enjoy yourself doing something that's healthy, and you end up, not doing any of that and just going crazy because you're bored all the time. You have nothing fun to do and nothing healthy. I don't think that, there really isn't any just There's nothing better than having a motorcycle or a dirt bike or riding, you know. I mean, I really do think having a motorcycle, you utilize it in your day-to-day life more than more than you'd ever really think. You think it's just pure enjoyment, and it's, you know, you can use it as a very practical form of transportation, as I kind of mentioned before, and using it as a practical form of transportation is wonderful. But you gotta change people's minds about stuff, I guess. I don't know. I mean, again, everybody fucking dies. It's like, I don't get why, like, the possibility of dying would ever hold you back from doing something. You know, it's weird. It's like, if anything, I probably have more of a fear of, like, living my life and having to figure out what the hell to do with myself. Like, I'm 29 years old now, and I don't think it's I don't think it's unreasonable to think that the way technology and humanity and healthcare is going, I don't think it's unreasonable to think that I could live another 100 years of my life if I took good care of myself and stuff. Which I don't, typically. But, if I was to live out the next 100 years of my life, what the fuck am I going to do with myself? Man, 100 years. To, like, devote yourself to living life and being a productive human, and oh god, it's really daunting to think about. But again, it makes me feel better when I have a motorcycle, because having a motorcycle just makes me feel, I don't know, it just makes me feel, I guess, more separate and unique. Because I mean, if you look around in the videos, I mean, even when you watch other, like, motorcycle videos, unless people, like, come together to ride, I mean, how often do you see people passing each other on bikes versus, you know, the guy riding passing people in cars? And when you see somebody, you know, I see it all the time. I just see people driving around in big vehicles, and it's just, you know, they're just transporting themselves, and it seems kind of selfish to me. But, you know, I don't want to be a jerk about it. I just think that if you're just going to transport yourself, you just don't need a particularly large vehicle to do so. I mean, you'd be amazed.